Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and very welcome to this webinar we offer you in collaboration with our partner, TransferRoom. Today, we have the pleasure to welcome Frederik Broholt. He is the Commercial Vice President responsible for business development, customer success and retention, as well as strategy and partnerships. Frederik will explain how TransferRoom has changed the landscape of global football and how it transformed the way clubs, agents, and players act in the transfer market. Before giving him the floor, I would like to remind all the attendees that you can also participate, typing your questions to Frederik on the Q&A that you can see on the left side of your screen, and I will moderate the Q&A at the end of the session. And in case you cannot follow the whole session, you will receive the recording afterwards, okay? So, Frederik, good afternoon, and thank you very much for joining us.
Good afternoon, Gemma, and thank you for having me. And good afternoon, everyone, and a warm welcome. It's a pleasure to be here today, and I look forward to spending the next hour or so together discussing a topic that most of you will hopefully find very relevant and obviously something that you are interested in, given the nature of football and what you're all doing and why you're here. As Gemma said, we have an hour together. I have a presentation that won't take more than 30 minutes. You can definitely put questions in the chat along the way if you want to, and otherwise we will have time at the end for you to ask questions, and we can do a proper Q&A session. If we start out, then there's a question around what's wrong with the football transfer market. That is a question that lays the foundation for TransferRoom and all that we're about, basically. In this presentation, I'll try to explain to you some of the pain points that we have identified in the market and how we're trying to solve them. Solve them both for clubs, for players, and for agents. Before we go into that, and in case you've never heard of TransferRoom before, I've just picked out a few headlines from international media which talk about what it is we're essentially trying to do and the impact that we've had. As you can see from the headlines here, there's been headlines such as "This is transfer speed dating, but on an industrial scale," and we've also been called the football transfer revolution. We've been compared to companies like Tinder and Amazon. And while that is probably not a fully fair representation and comparison altogether in terms of where those companies are now, the underlying logic and business fundamentals of what it is we do, the comparison actually holds true, because just like those companies, TransferRoom is based on a marketplace logic. And what we do is that we provide a platform where buyers and sellers and a product can get together. So it might not be singles in the dating market or small businesses selling a product. In this case, it's football clubs, it's agents, and it's players. Just before we get so far, and in fairness, so that you know who I am and what presentation I'm doing today, I'll just quickly introduce myself. My name is Frederik Broholt. I work as a Commercial Vice President at TransferRoom. And what that means is that the areas I'm responsible for is essentially all our sales. So that's tied to new business. It's tied to our customer success and retention. So that's managing the entire group of all existing customers we have today across clubs and agents and players. And then it's our commercial strategy and partnerships, which is more forward-looking, but all about where do we want to play in 1, 2, 3 years from now? What are specific initiatives and activities we can do to improve our current offering? And are there any potential partnership opportunities that we as a company can benefit from, but also the partners we engage with, similar to what we've done with the Johan Cruyff Institute here. I don't have a background as a professional football player or in football, unfortunately. I've worked in management consulting for nearly 10 years. And geographically, I've been based across Scandinavia, different countries in Europe, South Africa, as well as Southeast Asia. So that's a bit about me. You're more than welcome to reach out to me on a personal level after the presentation if you've got any specific questions. Now, The topics that we're going to talk about today are the ones you see here in front of you. And there's three things I'm going to tell you about. The first one is on the topic of what I shared before, what's wrong in the transfer market. So we'll try and dive a little bit deeper and understand some of the pain points that were also the underlying causes of why this TransferRoom was started in the first place. The second one is around how TransferRoom is then changing the game and the things that we're actually doing and the services we provide. And the third one is really around the current scoreline, so to speak, to see how far have we come with our current vision and mission and the way that we want to operate in the market. As Gemma mentioned, and just to highlight it again, there'll be plenty of time for questions in the end, so please don't hold back. Looking first at the transfer market and what it used to look like before, this is the story around what it was and to some extent obviously still is before we came along, but also what it is that we've been trying to work on changing. Our founder and CEO, Jonas Ankerson, he started TransferRoom back in 2017. So we are a bit more than 6 years old now. And the problem he identified when he was traveling around Europe talking to a lot of different football clubs was a few different things. One, that there was a lack of transparency in terms of the market and data and what's available. And secondly, a lack of access to not just the information, but also the decision makers. Now, for those of you who've played the computer game Football Manager, you'll know that in that game, you are able to see players from around the world who've been listed as available either for a transfer or a loan by their club. But what you may not know is that until TransferRoom existed, this was actually not something that came around. It didn't exist in real life on a global scale before. Clubs basically didn't know which players were available. They didn't know what the clubs were looking for. And typically the only way you could find out was by picking up the phone, getting in contact with a president, a sporting director of a club. But those would be limited to the ones that you had in your own network. And you would then also have to go through agents and intermediaries to leverage their network as well. For a business that is as global as football, where players transfer from one continent to the others, it didn't seem as the most efficient way of doing business to be limited by that. And that's basically what laid the foundation for what TransferRoom is. If we go a little bit deeper in that, we have identified 6 problems overall with the football transfer market in terms of how it used to be. The first one is the lack of real-time market information. So basically having limited knowledge around who is available, what clubs are seeking, and the information you tend to get is in many cases outdated quite quickly because things happen fast. There was network limitations, club and agencies having to rely on personal network to either recruit players or outplace them. There was an issue around too many stakeholders where often there's not a direct line of communication between actual decision makers in the process. There's also an issue around high turnover. It's no secret that football, like many sports, is a volatile business and staff turnover can be very high in football. You're only as good as your last result and your last game. And sometimes that means that key decision makers, they change and it makes it hard to know who to contact. The fifth one is around high cost. So doing football transfers and deals is costly in terms of money, travel time, and time that you spend. So if you could do that in a more efficient way, the return on investment there is actually quite high. And then the last issue or challenge was around entering new markets. Basically, being able to agree deals in new markets and regions where you don't operate today can be difficult. It can require extensive travel. And in many cases, you have to pay high commissions to intermediaries and local agencies in order to penetrate that. So now that we know what the problem in the market was, we can start looking a little bit at how it is and what it is we at TransferRoom do to solve that and how we're basically helping to change the game. Firstly, I want to just share our vision and mission. So at TransferRoom, the vision is that we're breaking down barriers in the transfer market to enable opportunities for everyone, everywhere. We empower our customers to be successful in the market by giving them real-time market intelligence and data, as well as a direct access to a global network of decision makers. If you boil these two things down, the vision and the mission of TransferRoom, that basically underpins everything we do at TransferRoom, all our product development, our partnerships, how we work with clients is focused on those two statements. So that's the red thread that goes through everything that we do. At the moment, TransferRoom currently has 3 active groups of users, soon to be 4. So when it was founded back in 2017, TransferRoom was purely a club-to-club platform. Not long after that, we opened up to what we call established and trusted agents who play a very important role in terms of ensuring that their players get more opportunities, they have opportunities to transfer than they otherwise would have. Our latest edition players came just last year when we opened up TransferRoom for professional players from around the world, where they can sign up to the platform for free. And in doing so, they are able to find a new agent that can help them improve their opportunities in the market. The last customer group or segment that we will open up for, as you can see here, is that later this year, we'll also open up for head coaches on the platform and allow them to be represented by their agents. In many cases, head coaches today have agent representation just like players, and allowing them to be on the platform will also provide them with that same mobility and options to get access to more opportunities around the world, basically. Each of these 4 groups, they have some of the same problems altogether, the ones that I highlighted earlier. And if we deliver on our vision and our mission of breaking down barriers to enable more opportunities, then these 4 groups are actually benefiting from that. So what I'll do in the following slides is I'll take a look of each of these groups, go through them one by one, starting with clubs and then uncovering the different points. For clubs, we basically help them, we basically help them address 3 of their biggest challenges. The first one is recruiting players. The second one is selling or outplacing players, whether that's selling or loaning players out. And the third biggest challenge they have is finding the right head coach. The way we do it, if we take that one by one, is if you look at recruitment today, in traditional recruitment, you would typically have a lack of transparency. As I mentioned before, clubs depend on network to get more information, and you have limited access to market data. So what that illustration shows is that even though there's a big market for players, it's very hard for you to find out who is available, if they're available for one thing or the other. But that's what TransferRoom allows you to do. So with TransferRoom, you have access to players who play in more than 700 clubs worldwide. You have real-time information about more than 75,000 players, and you have maximum market access. You will be able to know which players are available. Are they for loan, or are they for sale, or are they for both of that, basically? Similarly, when it comes to outplacement, a lot of the issues or pain points on traditional outplacement are the same. And what you typically have to do as a club or as an agent, if you're trying to outplace, is that you need to go through all sources and different channels, sending out emails, sending out WhatsApp messages, calling people in different markets to basically find out if there's someone who is looking for the type of player that you have. With TransferRoom, you are able to appeal to as many buyers as there are in the market as possible. You can receive direct club inquiries on your players. You can get information about the market demands, and you can pitch your players directly to the decision makers. So if you have a player who's available, you can see ads on the platform and say, oh, there's actually a club in France who's looking to buy a center back, or there's a club in the US who's looking to buy a center back and they have a budget of 2.1 million. If that fits the player that you have and you want to outplace, you can pitch that player directly. The last point here is on head coaches. So we covered recruiting, we covered outplacement. Now it comes to head coaches. Essentially, if you boil that problem down, football is an industry that has a very high rate of employee turnover. And I think the persona who is most exposed to this is for head coaches. The typical head coach, when you look at data from all over the world, only spends 8 months on average in each job. And within 1 year, more than half of all the current head coaches you have will have been sacked. Another 12% will have been poached by another club because they're doing a good job. So what that means is if you take the 12 and the 54% together, you basically only have a 1 in 3 chance that the current head coach you have will be the same at the end of the year. Obviously, if you look at coaches like Sir Alex Ferguson or Pep Guardiola in Manchester City, I think you'll all agree that finding the right head coach can really have a massive impact to the performance of your club and the stability in the club and the trajectory. That's why clubs also use TransferRoom to help identify the best fit for them and the next head coach they're looking for from a global pool of talents and head coaches, rather than just looking at the same 2 or 3 head coaches that you know and that has been on your list or played in the same league recently. An example of what this looks like is that the head coach product for clubs means that if you're looking to do recruitment, you can basically also create player ads like the ones you see on the platforms here. You're able to send messages to other players. You can see what players are available. You can register interest in them, and you can also find the next head coach. So if you go on to the platform and what it looks like in real life, that's essentially what this screenshot on the right shows you here. Similarly, if you're more interested in outplacement, you can list players either for full permanent transfers or for loans. You can pitch those players to specific clubs, and you can also receive offers on interest. So the platform in itself is quite intuitive, like you see here. If you've played Football Manager other games, there'll be quite a lot of resemblance to that, but that's essentially what the platform is all about. Now, if we jump to the next segment, the agents, and ask ourselves, why is it that agents use TransferRoom for transfers today? The pain point that agents have is essentially that in many cases, they're reliant on just having one partner agent to move the players abroad. They typically then have to split commission, and they're losing control of that deal. Secondly, doing deals is costly. You can ask any agent, they spend a lot of time on the road, they travel, they spend that cost money, and they need to constantly go and talk to clubs to really find out if there's an opportunity there. And similarly, because of the high turnover in football today, those frequent job moves mean that it's very difficult to stay on top of the requirements that a clubs have. Maybe a sporting director had a requirement 4 months ago, but he's no longer there. So is that requirement actually still relevant for that particular club? With TransferRoom, you can easily reach beyond your home market. You can grow your club network quickly at a very low cost because you have direct access to it. You can also be the first one to know and act on real-time view. So whenever an ad is posted, you'll know that instantly, so you can see what a club is looking for. And similarly, you can protect your players from other agents because you're a trusted agent. You verify your players on TransferRoom platform. It means you don't necessarily have to work with an intermediary and split your commission. If we look at another thing that TransferRoom offers agents is the ability to have a player acquisition, so basically expand their portfolio and scope of players that they represent today. With our player market feature, agents can be the first ones to know when a new player is looking for representation. They can thereby spend their time more wisely because they're putting their energy into players who are actually looking for an agent instead of talking to players who aren't looking for an agent. You can become an international agent because you now have access to players in the markets that you choose to represent and where you have knowledge. And right now we have more than 400 players in every market. So it's obviously a very big pool to choose from. Third segment on players. Why is it that they use TransferRoom? The questions that players have to ask themselves is, what options do I have in the market today? Which clubs are actually interested in me? Who can help me facilitate the dream move that I'm actually looking for? The agent I have today, can I trust my agent? When the agent says, yes, I've been in contact with this many clubs, I've tried to pitch you to them, is that actually true? Do you have that transparency? And similarly, what is the best agent for me and the needs that I have as a player? So players who use TransferRoom today, they get access to a global network of trusted agents, everyone who work with TransferRoom, and they have access to the more than 700 clubs on the platform. They're able to receive instant transfer market feedback, so they will know if an agent has pitched them to a specific club and what that club said. They can have that transparency and trust because they know what activities that an agent is doing on your behalf. So are they working hard enough to secure your move in the market? And they can also benchmark success because they have access to data and market value and performances of others. So they can compare themselves to other players and other personas to really try and see if what they're doing is the right thing. Lastly, the fourth segment is head coaches. So why will head coaches use TransferRoom? Well, basically, it's a job with low security. We saw that before. The average tenure is 8 months. Clubs typically are under a lot of pressure from owners, from fans and the media. So as a head coach, you staying on top of this and having that transparency is important for you. Clubs, when they recruit head coaches, they rely mainly on their internal network for searches. So if you're a head coach on TransferRoom, you're part of that pool. You have the ability to be visible to many more clubs. For a head coach, it can also sometimes be difficult to maybe prove your suitability. Are you actually the right head coach for the club? Now here, it's a very data-driven approach. There's a suitability score, a number of other indexes and metrics that will instantly tell the clubs whether your style of play, your results, your usage of young academy players is what fits the club's needs. And lastly, there's real-time market data. We know that decisions are often made based on what you hear on the reputation, what is said in the interview response. Here it becomes much more data-driven as a process. The way Coach Finder looks today, just to give you a sneak peek, is the screenshots that you see here. The product is called Coach Finder, and essentially it allows clubs to access the database, find more than 7,000 head coach profiles from across the world. And then there's a detailed list of all metrics and data for that one, including rating of the head coach, as well as the suitability score of the head coach. So how well does that head coach actually suit your team and your style of play? If we move on, then TransferRoom has also, outside of what we do on the platform, we've also been supplementing our core offering with our events. And TransferRoom hosts a number of events and summits every year, and we have attendees from all over the world. Since we started in 2017, we've hosted nearly 30 events, 28 now. We've had more than 30,000 one-on-one meetings. So essentially what you see in one of the pictures on the slide here is that you have one-on-one meetings. It's kind of like speed dating, but where decision makers from all over the world get together for 15 minutes and discuss and share requirements. We've had at one event, we've had more than 700 attendees in total, and we've tried to have nearly 60 different countries represented at our events. So they are events at a global scale and a massive scale, and I have a video here to just show you exactly what that looks like. So I'll just quickly jump away from the slide, and then I'll share a video with you.
So everyone knows what they're here for. Something as organized and professional as this can save a lot of time.
It's a perfect opportunity. Key decision makers are coming to every event.
For me, it's fantastic, first of all, for networking, see new people, discover new championship.
Direct synergy with other clubs, direct contact with agents. I leave this summit in a better knowledge and in a better professional.
My first experience was very, very nice, very productive. I met so many people from around the world.
One of the great things about TransferRoom is that it filters everybody who comes through. So you know that you're talking to a decision maker.
It's a perfect opportunity to meet everybody on one place.
For me, the most important is to have this space to open conversation.
Today I had meetings with clubs from Asia, from Europe, from Latin America.
TransferRoom have such a wide audience now spread across the world.
It's a big pleasure to introduce TransferRoom's Coach Finder.
For me, the coaches are the most important piece of the puzzle.
We need relevant information. We need verified information. And more times in this kind of process, you try to find information for external sources, opinion of people. More times are really subjective.
Clubs often rely on the reputation and recent results of a coach, but we allow them to go much more in depth.
One of the biggest challenges for me is the transparency of information.
You will see the playing style of the coach, a track record in increasing players' values, and also how good he is in developing young players.
So I don't think there's anything like this in the market. TransferRoom represents more of the cutting edge of where the market is evolving.
Maximizing time in the football business is crucial. And to be able to have a tool where we can immediately access unknown information could be very helpful to all of us.
Okay, you should be able to see that now again. So if we look at the last topic for today, now we've seen what TransferRoom is all about. Now let's also try and turn our focus to look at the impact that we've had on the transfer market so far. There's no doubt that, and you can look at the data to verify that transfers are becoming a global affair. So more than 50%, more than half of paid transfers are international transfers, so non-domestic transfers, and nearly a quarter of the transfers are intercontinental. And this has actually increased by more than 3x since 2009. So players who move from one continent, let's say South America, to Africa or to Europe, has increased threefolded over the last 14 years. The dotted lines you see here show actual TransferRoom deals and how our platform is supporting this process with large distant deals. We've had clubs in Uruguay selling a player to South Africa. We've had clubs in South America, in Europe selling to Japan, players from Europe going all the way over to the US. So it's really a global affair and deals that would typically not have been possible if it wasn't for TransferRoom. Similarly, we can also see that TransferRoom has a very global coverage today. So essentially, we work with more than 700 clubs from more than 60 countries and more than 100 leagues around the world. That's on the club side. We have more than 400 trusted agents who are verified by us and who represents their players exclusively. And we provide real-time information on more than 75,000 players. And we have more than 6,000 players, professional players, now verified on the platform. We are also facilitating a number of deals in the market. In the past winter window that was just finalized here at the end of January, the total number of deals that have been facilitated by TransferRoom now exceeds more than 5,000 deals in total. And not only the volume of deals is going up, but TransferRoom is also increasingly powering more high-value deals. So some examples you see from the slides here is Carlos Alcaraz, who switched from Racing to Southampton last year. You have Evander, who moved from Danish club FC Midtjylland to Portland Timbers. And then you had Victor Gyökeres, who made a move this summer from the UK to Sporting Lisbon. So we're increasingly also powering more high-value deals, and it's not just players of a lower price tag, but it's also more high-value deals that are done on the platform. Furthermore, TransferRoom is really becoming a must-have tool in the global transfer market. What you see here in front of you are the penetration rates on some of the leagues that we work with today, and we do work with more than 100 leagues. But in a lot of these leagues, we have full penetration today, either because we have league deals with them or simply because nearly all clubs have individually chosen to sign up. So in the world's strongest league, the Premier League, we have 18 out of 20 clubs working with TransferRoom today. But in most other clubs, it's 60, 70, 80, 90, 100% penetration overall. Now, some of you may also know Football Manager, of course, and we're not just growing our coverage in the football industry, but we're also starting to see that spill over to some of the partnerships that we've been involved in recently. One of the recent partnerships we've done is with Football Manager. I'm sure it's a game that either there's a lot of you play still or you have played before. And this was a partnership we initiated towards the end of last year. And it basically means that if you play Football Manager, you can now use TransferRoom to help make your deals happen. So it's making a computer game even more real time and reflecting of what's actually happening in the market. This is just the first step, and the plan with Football Manager specifically is that the partnership will continue, and we are going to continue making that transfer market experience in the game even more realistic. We are also working on partnerships with a number of others, and I'm sure most of you will know the person who is on the picture here. He's probably the most famous transfer market journalist, Fabrizio Romano. And as you can see and hear from the video I'm just about to show you, he is also one of the ones that we have a partnership with, and he has a huge following on social media. I'll share the video now so you can hear what he has to say, but essentially the partnership with him has helped us as a company reach more than 500,000 people and gain more than 10,000 new followers on social media. So let me just play that video for you.
Big news! Here we go. The transfer window is not closed, and this is how you can do transfer business all year round. Introducing TransferRoom is the global transfer market platform that never sleeps. Connect directly with the right people and see exactly what clubs are looking for live. Over 700 clubs, 400 agencies, and thousands of players are ready for business on TransferRoom, and transfers can be done right now with the window still open in over 30 countries. That includes Turkey, Austria, and more in Europe, Brazil and Argentina, and MLS. Clubs and agencies, get your best deals and build your reputation. Players, work with a top agent and get your dream move. But also, don't miss out on your next big transfer. Go to transferroom.com to find out more.
So we're also using our partnerships and what we do in commercial to try and grow our team, and not least the diversity that we have in our teams. Murky FC is something that some of you might have heard, but it was launched by Stormzy and Adidas back in 2022 to help young Black people get access to jobs in the football industry. This year, we are very proud to be among the partners chosen to help support this very important ambition, along with other organizations and companies such as Manchester United, Sky Sports, and so on. And finally, we also do a couple of educational partnerships that we have today, where we team up with people and support them succeed with their careers in football. The Johan Cruyff Institute is obviously one obvious example here, but we also work, among others, with UEFA and the Loughborough University. If we look at our team now, we have at TransferRoom more than 120 people in total. The majority are located and scattered across Europe. We have nearly 10 people in North and South America, and we also have representation in Asia. The way we do it is that the people on the ground, they basically help onboard and support clubs and agents locally. Football is still very much a people business, and that face-to-face interaction matters a lot. And they work with them closely to make sure they get the maximum value from the product, from the platform and product, which means that our reps will often be visiting the clubs and agents to share insight on their performance, provide recommendations on how they could basically improve their performance in the window and see more success, help educate them on new product features that we're bringing to the market, and even providing suggestions for how they can make the most of the platform and the usage they have. We keep growing at TransferRoom, and we continue to look for amazing people to add to the team. So just as a final slide before we open up to questions, I want to mention that we are constantly looking to expand our team. On this page here, you can see a few of the positions that we currently have open, but this is obviously changing and changing fastly, and we are constantly evolving as a company. So if you are interested in joining TransferRoom and working in football, I suggest you look closer at our website on careers.transferroom.com, where you can see whether there might at the moment be anything that suits your ambitions and what you're looking for. With that in mind, we've come to an end of my presentation. I think it was nearly on the 30-minute or just 32-minute mark, which means that we have at least another 25 minutes for questions. So I'll stop sharing now, and then over to you if you have any questions, and I'm sure maybe Gemma has been receiving a lot along the way.
Yes, thank you, Frederik, for your explanation. I think, it's very interesting tool for everyone in global football. So I've got some questions for you, but I will give priority to the ones we received from the attendees. The first one is, does the platform work also for women's football?
So at the moment, there's not a specific offering for women's football. It's something that we are looking into. We are aware of several things. One is obviously the importance of supporting this important work that is being done with women's football, and that being a very sort of mature market and growing in importance. So we want to support that as well. We also know that a lot of the current clubs that we work with have women's teams and very professional teams set up. So it's a very a natural expansion for us to look at. At the moment, we don't have it, but it's something that is on the list and sort of currently being developed, so it can be rolled out at some point in time to also cover women's football.
Okay. Another question is, why the events in person if all takes place online in the platform? And one of the selling points is saving time and money for travel.
Yeah, it's a good question. There's no doubt that football is very much a people business. It really still is a people business. And what that means is that the face-to-face interactions are important. And that will probably always be there in football. I think the way we look at it is TransferRoom and the platform is the digital solution. That's where you have the real-time market access and information. In many cases, you still at some point in time also need to have that in-person and physical interaction. What our events allows clubs or agents to do is that instead of traveling around the world, visiting 10, 15 different locations, taking 3-4 weeks and costing a lot of money, you can actually spend 36 hours at one of our events, and you can have one-on-one meetings with 30 different decision makers from all the way around the world. So it's bringing the digital platform back to the analog world, and because the importance of face-to-face interactions.
Clear. You've said 700 clubs is obviously a lot, but do you think that your product is relevant for all clubs across geographies and levels?
Yeah, it's a good question. I would say our product and platform is definitely relevant to all professional clubs, but the needs and demands of each club might differ a lot. So some of the lower tier clubs might have 1 to 2 really big talents that they need to earn money on and outplace to make sure that that club can see success in the future and have a steady and stable foundation. In those cases, we can help them make sure that those talents get outplaced to other clubs and they can get a higher fee for those players because we can generate more interest from more clubs. Other small clubs might also be reliant on bringing in players on loan from bigger clubs. And in this case, that's also something that the platforms can help with. So regardless of whether you're a big and small club, there's something for you. If we look at some of the top sort of clubs that work with TransferRoom, whether those are your Manchester Uniteds or PSG or Chelsea's of this world, they also have a very big need for TransferRoom because maybe on their academy players or their under 23 players, they need to loan a lot of those ones out to make sure they have playing time. And that's where the platform becomes very relevant for them, even though they may not at the current point in time be, buying a new Marcus Rashford or Christian Eriksen through the platform. It's still very relevant for them to use it.
And how do you do the selection of players? I mean, can all players sign up to TransferRoom?
So all professional players over the age of 18 can sign up to TransferRoom for free. We only have professional clubs and agents, so obviously the players will have to match their level of quality, which is why if you're someone like me, even though I'm over 18, my talent doesn't match those requirements. So you have to be a professional players. And to protect players in the early years from too much focus around transfers and agents, that's also why we only allow players aged 18 and older. But as long as you're a professional player over 18, you can access the platform.
Mm-hmm. And what about the agents? I've got another question here. Is a TransferRoom Trust agent a FIFA licensed agent? In other words, is the FIFA license a prerequisite for your certification?
So it's a very, very good and relevant question. Obviously, with the new initiatives that have come from FIFA last year, it means that there's a lot of changes happening right now. So the definition of a trusted agent on TransferRoom and even before FIFA is that you are an actual agent, you operate as an agent, and you represent the players that you say you represent. So in order to be on TransferRoom as a trusted agent, it means that we verify that you are an agent, but it also means that if you say you represent 10 players and want to have them on your profile, we need to verify with each of those players that you are actually the agent that represents them. Now, most of all the agents who are on TransferRoom today also have the FIFA license and the FIFA certificate. The ones who don't have are already enrolled for the exam coming up here again in April and May. But because we don't own the actual data on who is certified now, then it's hard for us to say that all of them are. So we still have our own TransferRoom verification process, but the majority are FIFA licensed or will become FIFA licensed.
Okay. You mentioned also that one of the problems you are trying to solve is helping clubs and agents save money in the transfer market. How do you do that?
So we do it in a few different ways. One way is that we help clubs with transfers altogether. So as an example, we can help a club save the cost of paying the player's salary while he's out on loan. If you're a club, you have 5 players, they're not going to be in your squad, you can loan them out. That means you're saving money on not having to pay the player's salary, because that will be taken care of by another club. Indirectly, we also save the clubs and agents a lot of time doing research, doing networking, traveling around the world to understand the needs and opportunities. And when you do that, you save them time, but you also save them money. The best example here is probably our events and summits that I talked about before, where in the space of just 2 days, you can meet people in person. You can have meetings with more than 20, 30 clubs and agents from around the world. And if you'd had to do that under normal terms, you would be spending the best part of a month just traveling around. So those networks are really critical in the world of football. And that access is very valuable for clubs and agents, but it also saves them money.
So we can say that agents are still needed in the transfer market, no panic.
Absolutely no panic. What we're doing in TransferRoom is not to take anything away from agents. Agents are a critical part of the ecosystem. I think everyone knows that the role that agents play for players is very important as well. So TransferRoom has never been about that. TransferRoom has been about creating the transparency, helping agents as well to get direct access to people so they don't need to work with intermediaries and third parties. And just to give a few more examples and reasons behind this. So as an example, for some clubs, if you want to find or provide more playing time for the players that you currently have who are on the bench or who's maybe reserves with your youth teams, that might not be the highest priority for you. In this case, agents can really help proactively find that new player opportunity. So the agent is really stepping in and helping that player here because it's not top of the list for the club. That benefits both the clubs, it benefits the player as well. A lot of the players also prefer having an agent to manage and handle all the contract discussions. So that's a key role that agents play. And they don't necessarily want to get in conflict with the coach or the club. So that's where agents also step in. And similarly, and I know agents will often get a lot of maybe negative grief in football, but it's very important to stress that there are a lot of good agents out there. All the agents that work on TransferRoom are trusted agents and they're doing the best for their players. And we enjoy working with them, but there could maybe also be other agents who are not necessarily trusted agents or would fit that criteria. But overall, agents are definitely needed in the transfer market, and we have no intention whatsoever of not maintaining that.
Where do you take the data from in order to give that info to players or clubs or agents?
Yeah, so there's a few different angles, and you probably have to look at data in different buckets here. So there's the type of data that we have on our platform, which is stats and performance data around a player. So of all the players we have, let's say the 75,000 players we have, you will have data and information there around the playing time, number of goals, assists, their performance, all of that. That's data that a lot of different data providers in the market provide. We have a few third-party providers that we work with on that, and that's to sort of just make sure that all the information you have, the basic information on the players and the performance, is there. The other part of the data, which is very unique TransferRoom data, is our market intelligence and market data. So when a club says, I am looking to buy or sell this player, these are my requirements, these are the ads I'm sharing, that is data you can only find through TransferRoom. And we are getting that because the clubs who work, they are themselves putting their squads there, they're updating their requirements, they're sharing the ads. So that part of data is very proprietary to TransferRoom, and it's coming from the clubs and agents and customers who use the platform themselves.
Another question about pricing. It says, as an agent with known many players, do you think in the near future there is the possibility of having more options of products that could fit for different agencies?
I would like to think so. If I look back, and we only launched our offering for agents 2.5 years ago, so it's actually still quite nascent. If I think about that journey it's gone through, it started from being just a relatively basic product where agents, they could just pitch their players and have access to that information. Over time, clubs have now become very, very used to the fact that we have agents on the platform as well, so they're sharing requirements directly with the agents. We've already launched and introduced a number of new products and features to agents. One of that was our player market offering, which allows agents to basically find more players to represent. And now, in probably a month or a month and a half from now, we will also be launching our new head coach product for agents, which means that all the agents who represent not only players, but also head coaches, and we know that a lot of head coaches have agent representation, they can now also pitch their head coaches in the same way as they do with players. So those are just two examples of quite big and impactful product releases and new features that have come out. But we have a product roadmap for the next 2 years with a lot of exciting things that we want to do to enrich our offering for agents. So it definitely won't stay the same. It will only get better and bigger.
Is there a particular number of players I can pitch at any transfer market window? Sorry.
No, so not really. If you're an agent and let's say you represent 10 players and they are verified and available on TransferRoom, then you can pitch if you want to outplace 2 of those players. Let's say 8 of them have current contracts, they're staying where they are, they're happy, but 2 of them have contract expiries or need to move from their clubs. Then you can pitch those 2 players without limits. And when I say without limitations, I mean you can only pitch them to ads that fit your requirements. So if you represent a center back, you cannot pitch that center back to a club who's looking to buy a striker. So you can only see the ads that fit your players and the requirements that you have. But once that is the case, there's not a limit to how many ads you can pitch your player to.
Okay. Another question, is there a plan to bring in a filter for sporting directors and scouts?
When you say a filter, can you clarify a little bit more, or?
I don't know, it's a question coming from the audience, but I guess that so now you are a tool for agents, players and clubs. And what about sporting directors or scouts? I mean, can they be there as?
Yes. So I think I get the question now. So they are already there. Let me try and explain why. So when we say we work with 700 clubs, and we work with, let's just use Manchester United as an example. When we work with Manchester United, the people at Manchester United who have access to the platform would typically be the sporting director, the head of recruitment, the chief scout, the loan manager. So all of those ones are already users. So if you're a club, you sign up to one of our packages, you maybe have 5 user accesses, then there'll be 5 different personas in your club who use the platform. So our tool for clubs is very relevant to those people I mentioned before. Definitely the sporting directors, technical directors, loan managers, head of recruitment, scouts, and so on. In some clubs where the football structure is maybe a little bit smaller, it can be that it's the president or the owner of the club who does a lot of the transfer business. But essentially, if you're a club who has a subscription and access to TransferRoom, then the people using it are exactly those people you mentioned before.
Okay, they want to know your opinion about that. Do you think that transfer market itself will normalize prices again now that everything is more transparent?
Ooh, that's a hard one to answer. I'll do my best to try and provide a little bit of context at least to this. So if you look at the development in the global transfer market over just the last 5 years, we saw a very steady increase in trends where window by window things were going up. COVID came along and hit, and then obviously for a couple of windows, everything really went down. Because of the finances and economic situations of clubs, there was just a lot less activity happening. And then what we've seen since 2021 is that the market has been picking up again. And in the summer window of 2023, we were post pre-COVID levels. So now we were up at those transfer levels that we were seeing before. And in the winter of 2023, so last year, we saw the sort of the biggest window ever. Now, if you look at the window we just came out of here in 2024, that volume and activity actually dropped a lot. So the value of deals that were done compared to the previous one dropped a lot. And what caused that was, one, there was the volume, so there were fewer transfers done. Two, the share of paid transfers, so not free transfers, but actually transfers where there was a value to it, also dropped. And lastly, the number of or the value, the average value per deal also dropped. So those were some of the main reasons. The Premier League and clubs in the UK specifically, who had been very, very active in the previous year, were more cautious. I think some of that also because of some of the new financial scrutiny and regulation that's coming in. So they're a bit more concerned and careful about what the implications are from that. So I think what you're seeing is that there's definitely more awareness and regulation obviously kicking in, and more rules that the clubs will need to adhere to. But at an overall level, I do believe we will continue to see sort of steady growth in the number of deals and value of deals as we go forward.
And what about your pricing model? Do you charge different rates for different groups, or is the same for everyone?
So a few points to that one. First of all, it's important to understand how our charging model works. And by that, I mean we are a subscription business. So if you're a club or you're an agent, it's a 2 or 3 year subscription contract that you sign up to in TransferRoom. And that price is determined on a couple of things. But the important point to know is that we don't charge any commission at all. So if you're a club, even though we facilitate transfers, we are not a commission-based model. So we have no skin in the game, or we have no interest in whether one player transfers from club A to club B. So our price is a purely subscription model, and what you pay for as a club or agent is that market access, the real-time market, the ability to pitch players, all those things I went through. Now, the products are different for clubs and agents, but we have, for both clubs and agents, we have a set list of different packages. So you can almost picture this as your club. You can have like a bronze, a silver, and a gold type of package. Depending on what you choose, there will be different features and accessibility that you have. And obviously, the more expensive the package, the more you have access to, but it also comes down to what your needs are. Do you need to outplace a lot of players or recruit players, or what is it? What are your objectives actually? Our pricing model is tiered. So it means that for clubs, depending on the league and the financial strength of that league and you as a club, you will pay a differentiated price compared to others. So we have that logic in place, but otherwise it's based on these different packages. And for agents, similarly, there's a number of different packages depending on whether you need player market, whether you need head coach, whether you want to have access to our events and so on.
Okay. And if there are plans for a summit in Africa?
So we don't yet have a TransferRoom summit or event in Africa. We haven't had that yet. We work on a 12-month calendar. We have our next summit and event coming up in Rome in 1 month from now. And then we will have another summit happening in November. And that may likely be in the Middle East, Northern Africa. It's still a little TBD, but as I think most of you know, there's a lot more activity and awareness happening in and around, especially some Middle Eastern markets. So there's also an increasing demand and pull for having contact with the clubs who work and operate there.
Okay. Okay, Frederik, I think yeah, we can leave it here. It's yeah, almost past. I left a link here that everybody can see, transferroom.com/Johan Cruyff Institute webinar. That it's a landing page where all the attendees, if they need more information, they can click on this link and they will go to this landing page with more details about TransferRoom. So yeah, thank you very much, Frederik, for your time. For me, it's been really interesting. I think it's a very powerful tool for our stakeholders in global football.
Thank you very much, Gemma. Thank you to everyone who spent time and took out the time to listen in. I hope it was valuable. Thank you for sharing all the questions. Please don't hesitate to reach out to me or to go to TransferRoom if you want to hear more or have a demo or have questions specifically. More than happy to answer that. But yes, pleasure. Thank you for having me, and have a good day.
Thanks, Frederik, and thanks everyone for your participation as well. Remember that you will now receive the recording of the session via email. And as always, we invite you to stay connected for upcoming webinars. We hope can be also of your interest. Just keep an eye to our social media channels where you will find all the information of future sessions. Thanks again, and see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.